So here it is, the most unpopular opinion I'll ever do. I hope you guys duet and stitch and save or whatever you need to do to this, because it's going to get down fast. If I would have understood when I was younger that fighting for my rights as a lesbian would mean allowing children to drag shows, attaching child molesters to our community, and allowing children to change their sex before they even know what their favorite color is, I would have never done it. Never.
Well, slap me with butter and call me a Hawaiian roll. Who could have predicted that a group of people that just wants to be respected has a few bad apples in it that could hurt the reputation of that marginalized group? And also, how could this human being actually come up with an idea that will be beneficial to that marginalized group in order to be respected by the people that they claim hate them 24/7? Oh yeah, it was me. Why? Because I've documented time and time again individuals who use these marginalized communities as a shield to do heinous shit. And all I've said, even though I screwed up with my vocabulary in it in some aspects, all I want is for people to just call it out. When you find out about it, don't sit and hide. Don't try to make some weird article defending them. Don't ignore it. Just call it out and say, we don't condone this. These are the things we condone. Anything that weirdo is doing, we're not taking part in any of it. That's all anybody would have to do. That's the rational thing. Whether if you knew about it from Jump Street and you felt as if you were too scared to call it out, or if you're just now finding out about it, call it out and don't even try to make an excuse for it. End of story, cut and dry. Because yes, there are people who just blindly want to say everybody in the LGBTQ community is a bunch of groomers, and that is dumb. And my counter to that is those individuals need to be worried about the youth pastor hanging around all their sons all day. They are the type of individual who don't like to listen to reason, and those are the stupid people you need to ignore, because they're going to exist whether you like them or not. It would be smart if you're trying to actually get people to hold conversation with you and get you to know that this is not what you're taking part of, to call out the bad behavior. I could sit here and pretend to be shocked that somebody is sitting here as an LGBTQ activist being surprised at all the weird shit taking place. The reason I'm not is because I'm bisexual and I've noticed all this weird shit taking place and I've made videos about it and I've said it. It's weird how a grown adult can get on any webcam or even write an article about how it's normal for individuals who are grown adults to think about boinking kids. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing heinous about that. It's just natural. It's weird watching somebody try to compare that to a kid not wanting to go to a party or a bar mitzvah. It's weird how many people want to jump through hoops to justify certain things. It is weird how grown adults act upon that and they use that I'm a transgender, you should respect my pronouns, as an excuse for why I can't criticize them. But guess what? It exists. And no matter how much we want to sit here and say all these fancy buzzwords, make all these articles, it exists. No matter how much you want to cry foul and say people are being transphobic, it exists. No matter how much you got all these people saying, hey, all we're doing is good things and all we will ever continue to do are good things, there are people using your marginalized community as a shield to be the biggest pieces of shit on the planet. And if you refuse to acknowledge that, more and more people who already hate you are going to use that as evidence to get even more people to hate you. And that's not in your best interest.
Much for that question. I use the term minor attracted person or MAP in the title and throughout the book for multiple reasons. First of all, because I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. And MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term MAP. They've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like a lot of people, when they hear the term, automatically assume that it means a sex offender. And that isn't true, and it leads to a lot of misconceptions about attractions toward minors. I've definitely heard the idea that you brought up, though, that the use of the term minor attracted person suggests that it's okay to be attracted to children. But using a term that communicates who someone is attracted to doesn't indicate anything about the morality of that attraction.
Federal prosecutors say Alden Bunog sent illicit pictures and video to another teacher on the mainland and admitted to sex with a 13-year-old student. Manolo Morales reports.
Alden Bunog made his first court appearance on Thursday at the federal courthouse and remains in custody until his next hearing. Court records say he admitted to investigators that he recorded his sexual encounters with a 13-year-old boy who was a former student and sent the videos to others through a messenger app. According to federal court documents, Bunog had been sending child pornography to a teacher in Philadelphia. That teacher was arrested in October. Documents say Bunog and the mainland teacher exchanged over 3,300 messages to include hundreds of images and video files, and that Bunog claimed to have sex with the boy at the school during lunch breaks. He also described the boy as a former student and knew that he was a minor at the time. Records say he also admitted to distributing the video recording of his sexual contact and admitted to distributing child pornography involving other minor victims.
An abstract from Stephen Kershaw of Fredonia State University. Non-forcible adult child sex is thought to be morally wrong in part because it's non-consensual. In this paper, I argue against this notion. In particular, I reject accounts of the moral wrongfulness of adult child sex that rest on the absence of consent, concerns about adult exploitation of children, and the existence of morally primitive duty against such.
Children can't be willing things in general. It's an odd view in that they seem to will things all the time. They will participation in kickball. They will showing up, participating in the bat mitzvah lessons. So there's all sorts of things that they will. You might think, well, maybe there's something distinct about sex that they can't really understand it. It's not clear to me that what they're not getting at is consent. I suspect what they want to say is, okay, they're willing participants, they're voluntary participants. They have some understanding what's going on. Not understanding we do, but some understanding, but they haven't consented. Perhaps that's so, but that's a different claim from their being unwilling. There's just lots of activities that children engage in that they don't understand all that well. For example, when you first show up to participate in a judo tournament or you prepare for your bat mitzvah, I mean, you have a rough idea, but it's not clear how much you fully understand it. Imagine that an adult male wants to have a 12-year-old girl. Imagine that she's a willing participant. A very standard, very widely held view that there's something deeply wrong about this, and it's wrong independent of it being criminalized. It's not obvious to me that is in fact wrong. I think this is a mistake, and I think that exploring why it's a mistake will tell us not only things about adult-child, but also about fundamental principles of morality. If we're in the area of legislation rather than morality, here's a rule of thumb. If you don't know whether something has expected good or expected bad consequences, the thumb on the scale should go to liberty. So if we don't know whether willing with 15-year-olds is going to have net good or bad consequences, it's not like we say, oh, well, go ahead and ban it. The idea is that people trying to criminalize something bear the burden. And even having harsh opinions on this, before we condemn people for engaging these on the basis of probabilistic utilitarianism, we should know that it does pose a risk for those and only those willing participants. I don't think we know that.
Still the adult child, that's always a big seller.
Oh, yeah. Well, that
I had good friends who said, are you crazy? Do not write that book.
Man, listen, you're talking to a guy who for 25 years has been making arguments more or less in defense of adult child in classrooms. And I don't know if it's the same argument as yours, but I even authored a piece in the Daily Beast in which I called into question the age of consent laws, which is, and I brought to bear the arguments I was making in class. And I'm going to see how they
infringement case that we don't get, they can't give their valid consent, and therefore it's wrong in virtue of being a right infringement. And there's a view that it's exploitative. That even if it's not harmful, and even if it's not a right infringement, it's somehow an exploitation.
Right. I've heard all these. Yes. Okay.
Right. So those are the three dominant arguments. And none of these convince me. So me neither. The harm argument. Well, there's actual empirical controversy over this.
Sure. Yeah.
On the rights-based argument, I think, look, we make children do all sorts of things that we don't want to do. Right?
Thank you.
We make them go to church. We make them go to the temple. We tell them to go to school. They got to go to the dentist. They got to go to their sister's ballet recital. And we don't care what they say. And they want to do things. We say no, right? They say, I want to stay up and watch, Creature Feature on WPIX until, 2 in the morning. Say, well, it's tough.
That is all a child's life is coercion.
Right, that's right.
Is coercion by adults often to make the child do something for the adult's pleasure only.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You say, you're going to go to your great uncle's funeral, even though you want to go, and even though it's not in your interest.
Right.
So the rights-based argument's a little bit hard to follow.
I've said it numerous times. Apparently that makes me transphobic. I don't know how, but I guess that's how the dice roll. At the end of the day, if you're surprised that you're seeing a lot of weird things taking place, if you're seeing kids at drag shows, which I have to stress is not meant for kids, you're just gonna have to roll with the dice that you took part of, because it comes down to you not calling out all this weird shit that's in front of everybody's eyes because you saw Ben Shapiro talking about it, because you saw Matt Walsh talking about it, and they're conservatives who hate gays, so I have to stand against them. I can't call that out. No, it's important. Whatever weird thing you see, actually take the time to internalize it and figure out if it's actually weird or if you're just jumping the gun. And when it comes to people trying to normalize pedophilia and kids showing up at drag shows and kids going to parades and getting sprayed on by some dude wearing a costume with a dick on it shooting cum, it's weird. Grown men on bikes naked where kids are present, weird. I don't care about any articles saying, oh, my kids deserve to know about the kinks at Pride. It is weird. Clear, cut, and dry. You can complain, you can whine, you can bitch, you can moan. That's not gonna stop people from seeing that and calling it what it is. Weird. All these communities that claim to be marginalized got bad apples in them. And I don't know why, but some of the top head honchos in each one of these communities chooses to ignore the obvious bads that take place in each one of them. And that does not help anybody get to any form of a conclusion or resolution when it comes to peace. It's not going to get more people to respect you. It's not going to get more people on your side. It's going to get more people to look plain as day at you and say, why aren't you talking about this? Because you're too busy fixated on some narrative that you're missing the obvious bad that's right in front of your face. So unless you're willing to fix that, continue to be surprised by the problems in each and every one of your communities. Whether if it's LGBTQ, whether if it's the black community, whether if it's any of these communities, there are bad apples in each of them. And if you're too chicken shit to fix them, don't get mad when shit hits the fan and nobody ends up on your side. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.